So, if I'm able to successfully complete this one, this is the video I've wanted to make for a very long time, but it's very difficult because this is a much more personal video. And please don't think I'm going to preach to you. I'm not claiming any type of religion. I do have some beliefs, but I just want you to understand why I believe so strongly the Lions will specifically defeat the Cleveland Browns in this year's Super Bowl. I don't believe in a lot of things. I have no idea what I believe on like 99% of things in the world, right? Or beyond. But I do strongly believe that. And there have been some other things I've strongly believed in my life related to sports that have come true. So I want to take you through my experience as a sports fan up to this point and why I believe with every fiber of my being that this is the year the Browns finally appear in a Super Bowl and the Lions blow the doors off of them, right? So this is my sports experience. So not a lot of note, as far as like weird coincidences or anything early, but like as young as like Sports Illustrated 1993 VHSs, that sort of stuff. I was just digesting them, looking through all sports video games rosters, reading every magazine I could get my hands on. As soon as the internet came around, at least in my home, constantly Googling NFL statistics every single week, right at the beginning of like fantasy, all that sort of stuff, even though I wasn't into fantasy. I just wanted to know like which player's really good. I had all sorts of trading cards. I'd study all the numbers, see who was really good. I'd have my favorite cards, all that sort of stuff, right? Pretty normal stuff. But I was like especially obsessed with my football VHS collection, and when you look at like the best of list, like I definitely had them, and I didn't have a ton of films, but I happened to have like some of the very best ones, just scooped up at flea markets, that sort of stuff for $1. My favorites would be like Football America. Like I mentioned, the Sports Illustrated VHS series annually was incredible. Um, Stuff like that. Like I said, if you look up a list, it's pretty much going to be the ones on there. I've watched a billion since amazing documentaries all about, the AFL, the entire history of the league, like more hours than you could possibly imagine, more content than anybody probably has watched on the YouTube platform, right? As far as like studying the history of sports in general, not just the NFL, but even before the NFL and before football, all that sort of stuff. Like, where does sports come from? Like, what was the original purpose? How was it organized? All that sort of stuff, right? So, and a lot of that was like taking classes, all that sort of stuff, like, just studying like the history of the Olympics, like, that sort of stuff. I believe that class, the best one that was most helpful in that regard, I believe that was Duke. But who knows? I can't really remember off the top of my head. But I know I did really well, and it was all very spiritual, all that sort of stuff. Like, like kind of what I expected. Like, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I was big growing up in Virginia Beach. Didn't have any real sports teams, right? Like, I liked Old Dominion basketball. They didn't have a football team, so I liked Virginia Tech because Mike Vick was from the area, right? So loved Mike Vick. Thought he was gonna, be the savior. Ended up making me cry when the Hurricanes beat him, right? Stomped him. So also Allen Iverson from the same area. Loved him. Uh, Ended up becoming a Sixers fan due to that. Now, just a coincidence that I ended up liking the Eagles as well. It had nothing to do with them being Philly or anything like that. I actually was a Cowboys fan because, like I said, the 93 year in Sports Illustrated, my dad was a Cowboys fan. I liked all those guys, but like not the way I would later fall in love with Eagles players. But the reason I fell in love with Eagles players is because I showed up into a league, and for the Cowboys, like, you had to try out all that sort of stuff. Try out for the Cowboys. Coach said he didn't want nothing to do with me. Only team in the league that wanted me was the Eagles. They said they'd start me. I started as like the youngest player on the team. We go all the way, like the city championship, losing double overtime, like all that sort of stuff, right? So fell in love with the Eagles from there. Went to a lot of Christian schools. They're all named Eagles, so I just didn't really have a choice in the matter. Vic ended up going there too, just solidified it. Years after I was a diehard Eagles fan. My first jersey happened to be a Randall Cunningham jersey, right? So mid 90s, shifted to diehard Eagles fan, like for life. All I wanted was that one Super Bowl, right? So everybody would shut up, tell us that, we're the only, stop telling us we're the only team in the division that's never won one, right? Shut up the Cowboys, shut up the Giants, shut up at the time, the Skins, right? So, basically, that was the one I really, really wanted. Was an Eagle Super Bowl. My whole life I wanted an Eagle Super Bowl, right? And they almost got there pretty early on. This is like where stuff starts getting interesting, right? As far as like conspiratorial stuff. So, right when I'm starting junior high, and I got to hear all these Yankees fans. Not really too many Patriots fans, of course, are everywhere once they start getting good. But around this time, like that hadn't really hit full steam yet. I'd still say the Cowboys were the hot team, even though they hadn't won in a while. Like that was just still like they're gonna come back. They're hyped up every year, all that sort of stuff. America's darling. So like a lot of that still hadn't died off, even though it's like a decade later. So, didn't get a lot of Patriots fans, but you get the Lakers, you get the Yankees, all that sort of stuff. So I watched my Iverson-led Sixers get stomped by the Lakers, and I thought for sure, oh, they're so close to winning game two. If they would have just pulled that out, right? They would have somehow found a way to win the series, right? Obviously, I don't believe that anymore. That's what I believed as a kid, right? Like 10 years old, probably not even. So then, as far as the next round, like I said, okay, but then started getting a little bit of success. I was a Maryland Terrapins fan for some reason. I just loved ACC basketball. I saw Duke like humiliate them. So I was like, I hated Duke. I'm like, I love this Juan Dixon kid. They're gonna smoke Duke next year. All that sort of stuff. Like I had some sort of raffle thing to where if Maryland won the tournament, like I'd win some stupid basketball or something. You know what I mean? I ended up winning that because I picked them to win the next year, like I said, and they ended up beating Duke. They ended up winning the whole thing. I was like, whoa, what do you know? I actually know a little bit about sports finally. I got one. Right? Maryland championship. Had nothing to do with coincidence, anything like that. I was like, man, this boy can shoot. Like, just typical basketball fan stuff. We're just going to call that one luck. Happened to get on to Maryland at the right time. They had a cool mascot. Like, maybe for some reason, there's like a higher presence that guided me to be a Maryland fan at that point. Because I can tell you, nobody in my life ever said, go check out Maryland. Like, I don't know how that one happened. That one was weird as can be. Right? And as soon as they won, just my nature. Oh, that's that. That was nice. That was my Maryland Terrapins team. I don't ever expect them to win another one. I did watch them for years and years after that. What finally killed Maryland basketball for me was them leaving the ACC. Just couldn't do it anymore. So I switched to UVA at that point. They win the championship, right? The what is it? The unbelievable run. They lost to the 16th seed the year before. Basically, dribble the ball off their foot, heave it up court. Shouldn't nearly be enough time left. They somehow hit the game-winning shot, right? And so uh, like I said, so I got UVA too. I was hard on them for years and years. That was one I wanted bad. It felt like forever, and I just loved that team. I thought they were so good, defensive led coach. Once again, not really thinking too conspiratorial at that point, but I did skip ahead. So the real important part is 2004, right? So 2004 rolls around. We got our Red Sox and our Eagles making the championship. Now, why are the Red Sox important? It's my stepdad, die-hard Red Sox fan. He don't care about no other sports. Like, he likes them, but you can't wear a Yankees hat in the house. You even bring some Blue Jays, anything like that crap. You're gonna hear about it, like, for real. Like, probably the biggest jerk ever about baseball. Sincerely loves his Red Sox. I've seen him break stuff over a loss, even after they won the World Series. Right? Like, dude just cannot handle the Red Sox not being good. He just loves them to death, right? And I totally get it. If you know him, like, he just loves them, right? And so he's my favorite Red Sox fan. Right, so that's why I love the Red Sox so much. And he'd always tell me, like, man, they're gonna break your heart. You have no idea. You have no idea what this team does, dude. Like, my whole life, I wanted them to win, and it's just they invent new ways to lose. Like, do not ever, like, you have to be a Red Sox fan, but don't fall in love with them. Right, like, that's pretty much how it was. Like, I did love them, but they weren't like my team, right? They're like our team. That's my stepdad's team. Like, I really want them to win for him, but I don't care about baseball. It's lame. All right, you know what I mean? Like, I'll watch the Sosas and the McGuires and the Bonds and the Griffeys and, Mo Vaughn. A lot of guys back then I liked. I had all the cards too, like Strawberry, pretty much anybody. Like, I didn't have a team. I didn't care who won. I didn't really get the personalities. I just know I hated the Yankees, right? He was dead right about that. So I was like, maybe he's right about the Sox, right? They hit the Yankees that bad. Maybe he's right about the Sox, right? So going into the '04 season, I can't skip '03 with them, right? So they get stomped by the Yankees. Pedro calls the Yankees his poppy, like all sorts of stupid stuff, right? Or his daddy. Calls him his daddy. And, just like worst time ever to be a baseball fan. They run The Curse of the Big Bambino on HBO. They start filming Fever Pitch the next year about how hard Red Sox fans have it, right? With Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore. So during this season, sometime before the playoffs, because he had always talked about 1918, always talked about the Babe Ruth curse, he had always talked about 1986, especially because we grew up in Virginia, we had the Tide, so he loved Strawberry, right? I'm pretty sure maybe even Mookie was on that Norfolk Tides team because that was the Mets farm system, right? So yeah, I'm growing up loving these guys who go on to beat his beloved Red Sox, right? So like you would talk about that specifically all the time. Like I don't think 1986 hit anybody harder than my stepdad. Sincerely, like I've heard a lot of stories. Love growing up. That's your neighborhood team, and they grow up to beat your beloved baseball team. And like there's more to the story than that, but I'm not get too personal, right? Like what if you've seen Fever Pitch and you think that uncle story is good, I promise you my stepdad's got him beat, right? It's a little too personal. It's not my business, right? So I'm just gonna leave it at that. He's got amazing reasons, right? So as far as so that's, always heard about 86, all sort of stuff. So sometime before the playoffs, I got in my head, like, oh, it's been 86 years, and the last time they made it was 1986, right? Like, that's the weirdest coincidence ever. Like, I mean, it just seems perfect timing. Like, they're so good now. Like, yeah, they lost the Yankees last year, but, like, this team's stacked. Like, I loved the Sox in the 90s playing on, like, N64 and stuff with all those sluggers, you know what I mean? It's like, basically who they have right now is if you have that same team and then just add like everybody you would want that's like a dream hitter from around the league. Like it's like, oh, you added Manny Ramirez, you got like Jason Damon or Johnny Damon, sorry. You know what I mean? You already got Garcia Parra from the Cubs, like all this sort of stuff. Like I mean that team was just insane. That Red Sox team, that's the best baseball team I ever saw. That '04 Red Sox team, sincerely, I think they would beat anybody. So, when they go down, I got in my head, like I said, well, this is their year. I kept telling him, he was like, whatever. He doesn't have faith, right? Like, my stepdad is very cynical, right? He's very worldly, right? Like, he doesn't believe in any higher power, whatever. I've never believed in what anybody has told me is God or believed in, like, a book or anything like that. But I've always believed I had some help, and that's just somehow going to work out. I've always had some faith. Right, and that's what I think makes me believe the things that I believe. I have some sort of faith, right? But I have reasons, right? Things happen that nobody else would have believed that I believed and happened, right? So the kid I hated most in school, like I said, was a Yankees fan. You have no idea. Like as far as like how much I hated this kid, I passed the ball into him one time in basketball. I was kind of like heavier back then, but like he just sprints up the court, right? Like tries to like get me out of the play and immediately like throws the ball to the elbow. Like I hauled, down the court, straight down the line, sprinted out to the baseline. So as soon as that ball whipped there, came right to me and I drilled the 3-pointer, like just to be like, hey, he tried to like get me out of the play. You know what I mean? Like this was a kid like I'd never let show me up. So like the idea of losing to Yankees was one thing. Idea of having to hear this idiot Yankees fan who just bandwagons every single good team, right? Hops around the typical Lakers, Cowboys, Yankees fan, right? I got to hear this idiot talk about. It's like, ain't no way. So like they're down 0-3. I'm just like, I don't care. Have you not watched this season? Like there's been so many times where you just wanted to quit and like they just do something crazy and like my stepdad's like, that's how they are though. You know what I mean? I'm like, you got a point. But like this is just, I'm telling you, it's the 86 and 86. Like if it wasn't this year, I wouldn't say it, right? But like right now, right here, right now, like it's happening, right? And sure enough, you can watch the documentary if you want to know exactly how it all unfolded. But basically ends in a walk-off grand slam. That might not be exactly. I know there was a big grand slam in there at some point. That might have been a walk-off for one of the wins. Like I said, I'm a little fuzzy on the details. I remember the bloody sock. I remember Poppy just being insane. I remember Martinez being incredible. Like, I don't remember much no more, to be honest, for some reason. But basically, they go on, they win it. I didn't even watch the World Series. I knew right then, oh, that's it. That's a wrap. I was calling them the World Series champs. I didn't watch no more baseball. I got drunk as can be that night. Literally just preteen. You know what I mean? Just hammered drunk. One of the first times I'd ever been drunk. Hammered drunk off the Crown Royal, Jim Beam, whatever it was. Some sort of bourbon. Right, just absolutely hammered. Didn't even go to school the next day. Like, sincerely, just like, that's it. We went, my stepdad's still in Pennsylvania the whole time. I'm literally like, what are you talking about? Like, they're still playing? Like, what are you talking about? They beat? There's no way they're not going to. They're playing the Cardinals? I would have never guessed that, but who cares about the Cardinals? You really think the Cardinals are going to beat them after that? All right. I think it went like 4 or 5 games, something like that. Like I said, I didn't even watch. Sincerely, that's how sure I was. It was like, oh, it's over. They did that. They're World Series champions. I already told. Like, you think they're gonna get something harder than being down 0-3 to the Yankees, boy? Come on, man. Come on. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, I can't tell you one thing that happened after that series in that run. Sincerely. So, then, so this I believe was actually after my Eagles had made the Super Bowl. So I already got my hopes up and dashed about the Eagles, and it's the second I loved that Eagles team. I've loved a lot of Eagles teams in my life. That mid 2000s Eagles teams, not even the Owens one. Like right before that, like when the Bucks robbed them. Oh man, those teams were disgusting. Those are the only ones I put up with, like the '92 Eagles. Just out, and like I said, 18 would be right behind that. That was a very special team too. I ain't even front, right? So, and then actually, I think the 18 team I might like even a little bit less than like the Vic, Deshaun, Macklin, Shady teams. Those were just unbelievable offense, right? But the linebacker problems, all that sort of stuff, held them back. So, moving on. Anyways, the second the Eagles lost that game, and I'll be honest, I didn't even want to watch that game because, like, as much as I mean, that's not true. I just had a bad feeling. Like, I had already said, and there's a lot of times, like, I remember watching them 4th and 26 against the Packers, like, oh, they're going to get this. And sure enough, Freddie Mitchell gets this. Like, what do you know? That was incredible. Like, that's going to be a play everywhere. And then sure enough, it just becomes known as 4th and 26. Right? You just type that in, you're going to get that play. All right, wow, what do you know? You see, I wasn't live for the first miracle at the Meadowlands, but I saw the Brian Dawkins one. I saw the Deshaun Jackson one with the Deshaun Jackson jersey on my back. The nicest one you've ever seen. Since the only nice jersey I ever owned in my life. I got it for Christmas. Like, so, see, I've never seen a jersey that nice besides one that was made by an equipment jersey of the Penguins for a relative of mine. Since who like worked for the official Steelers radio station, right? So you better believe this was a nice shirt, you know what I mean? So like I was pumped on Deshaun Jackson. I absolutely loved him. I liked the Sean McCoy even better. I had his jersey, wasn't a super nice one. Right, so I was rocking the Deshaun one. And the whole game, it's like, man, but like I still just believe they're just somehow gonna do it. You know what I mean? They're down like 3 scores or something like that. And it's like, oh, it's my boy Vic. They got so many weapons. Like, if anybody can score points in a hurry, it's this team. You know what I mean? I was watching during the Monday Night Massacre, all that. So like I knew every bit what this team. I was playing Madden like crazy at this time. Some of my peak Madden years. You know what I mean? So, yeah, absolutely. Just full faith they were gonna somehow pull it off. Like it's the Giants. Like who's the Giants? Ain't the Cowboys or something. Like we can torch them 44-6 too. But like it's still a bigger ass than this. Like ain't the Patriots, just the Giants, right? So sure enough. They don't punt it in bounds. Oops, Deshaun fumbles it, runs it in. I'm not skeptical at all when I see it. I buy it hook, line, and sinker. I'm jumping for joy. I knew it. I believed in you, Jason Avant. I knew you'd throw that monster block. Like I said, I bet the whole deal. Looking back now, that's really one of those plays. Every miracle between Eagles and Giants, man, if you can buy all 3 of those together, let alone one of them, I don't know, man. I don't think you're thinking too critically. As much as I'm telling you, I want to believe. Nobody believed and loved it more than me. Even getting abused. My team's not winning a lot. You know what I mean? Like, so I got a few here and there. But even rooting for the underdogs, usually taking on the chin, still loved it. Still wanted to be real. Barely ever doubted it, right? Never even thought much. But I could hear about stuff, oh, maybe a game here and there. You know, like most people. Oh, maybe the refs did screw the Kings, right? In 02. Right? Something like that. Maybe a college game, right? But I still believed it was just, I could never believe somebody would go out on a court and play pretend ball, play in a game that ain't on the level. Because I wasn't built that way at all. I loved organized sports. I love street ball. And even street ball, I ain't going to try to get nothing cheap. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a foul, I'm calling it, as far as on me, like, my bad, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't trying to get nothing, go, I'll work you on, but I'll win, we're going to do it the right way. I respect the game, right? Always have. There's fundamentals, all that sort of stuff, right? Do things the right way, be honest, good sportsmanship, the whole deal, right? You can talk as much trash as you want, get a little edge, really get in the other team's head, that's all well and good. Shake their hand on the end of the game, tell them you respect them, all that sort of stuff, right? But so I never liked wrestling. Sincerely, didn't do nothing for me. I would say I like Scotty 2 Hotties, so I wasn't sitting around watching it. I play a little bit of the games, they were dope. Not as much as most people. Right? I was more into quarterback club, Tecmo Bowl, that sort of stuff. Courtside too. So, like I said, I just never really thought to do. I was always told wrestling was fake too, so it's like, oh, that's lame. When I was a kid, I figured out Santa Claus was like, I asked my mom real young, is Santa Claus fake? You know what I mean? She didn't want to tell me at all. I could tell it just broke her. Like, really? You could do this to me already? You know what I mean? It was just like, for that, like someone in my life played Santa Claus and then they passed away and there was no more Santa Claus, right? So I was like, guys, that ain't real, right? You know what I mean? I kind of figured it out. So, that started making me a little more skeptical about some things, right? Not much. But I loved first I didn't really watch most Super Bowls. So the good Super Bowls I remember, like I said, Broncos, Packers. The Packers ones in the 90s were really good. I remember watching all the highlights of the Cowboys runs, of course, from the 90s. The Niners runs from a little bit later. And yeah, I loved no Super Bowl here, but like I said, of course, obviously Vic's Falcons were really cool. I liked Randy Moss's the Vikings, just like the swagger type teams, but like I said, I was diehard Eagles. I don't care if Randy Moss dope or not when he's against my team. My Eagles better whoop him. He ain't nothing, right? So like I said, I was diehard loyal to my sports teams, but all I ever wanted with the Eagles was one. But after 04, it couldn't just be one. That first one, it better be against Tom Brady's Patriots. Better be. I'm telling you, that one was too bad. You better get that back somehow. And what do you know? 14 years later, that quarterback's still in the league for a team that's still competing for him. Not only that, the Eagles are the only thing standing in the way of them three-peating. People don't really think about that, but the Patriots won the year after, too. They didn't get hit with the Super Bowl losers curse. They went right back to winning, right? But what do you know? All those years later, Tom Brady, still there. Same coach, right? Same everything, almost. Just most of the faces have changed. They're still running the same thing. You know what I mean? It's what's even more annoying is it's man, the Eagles brought this style. Reed was the guy that made everybody start passing. Belichick just got the right guy to perfect it, right? And it's so annoying that it's him. There's nothing special about him. He's just smarter, but not in a way it's not some genius thing. He's just not an idiot. He knows when to never be an idiot. And that's what I always felt like I was good at. Just never be a complete clown out there. Right? That can go a long way. And just always give your guys a chance. Trust them. Believe in them. Give them confidence. Believe in them more than they believe in themselves. You'll see things that they didn't know they could do. Right? You know what I mean? So that's what I believe Tom Brady was good for. You know what I mean? So 2018 rolls around. I didn't think nothing about that flip. Because I wasn't thinking flipping numbers. Like I said, it's got to be some long year drought, and then they somehow won it in they're lost in that same amount of years. Like they lost in '86, and 86 years ago they won it. And so there's some obvious, notorious curse everybody knows, right? Like the Red Sox are special and unique in that regard, in my opinion. At this point in time, I didn't think it was something that every team does, at least all the cursed ones. I thought it was just the Red Sox are special like that. So 2018 rolls around, and I did skip a little bit. So after the Red Sox, my team every single year was the Cubs. I didn't watch them at all, but I would say every single year the Cubs are going to win it, right? So then the Cubs finally win it against the Indians. Most improbable World Series ever. That's my strongest conviction in a way. I feel like I have a lot better reasonings, like as far as like you look at the actual numbers there and how they add up and what it seems like they're doing. Like I believe those are stronger. But as far as like the example of why a league would want to run the most improbable World Series / Super Bowl ever, they just did it 8 years ago. And as far as like they're really going to put the Browns and the Guardians and maybe even the Cavaliers in the same time, yeah, Cavaliers and Guardians were in at the same time in 2016. It's how they seem to do things. It's like with the way they got the strike year, and they can make the drought like 1 year different, than it really is with baseball. Like there's probably all sorts of teams that popped up and they won championships in the same amount of like, basically the same year. You just don't think about it because it was the next year, right? It would have been 2022 instead of 2021. And it's like a whole different season, but it's like, well, the amount of seasons since like that actually does line up. Like that team, basically, I'm getting too into it, but basically, they hide a lot of stuff that way, right? As far as like weird coincidences and stuff, like Back to the Future didn't get the Cubs right. They were off 1 year, right? You know what I mean? And they said it was Miami. Well, in Major League, the movie in 1986, the Indians were going to become Miami, right? So when Back to the Future predicts in 2015 the Cubs beat Miami, is it that crazy and not a coincidence? In 2016, the Cubs beat the Guardians / Indians, right? The most improbable World Series ever, the two longest droughts, all that sort of stuff. As soon as if the Guardians do win next year, like I predicted, I haven't gotten full into the curse for that for y'all, and I do believe it very, very strongly. I don't think it's nearly as good evidence as I got for the Browns and Lions, but I believe it just as strongly in a way. So. If the Guardians go on to win next year, as I've predicted, the Padres and Brewers will instantly be tied for the longest World Series drought. On top of that, they've both never won one. Joined the league the exact same year. Now, they happen to play in the same league right now, so it's like, they could never match up in the World Series. Teams realign all the time. All the time. You really need to go back and play any type of video game if you want to have your mind blown at like wow, they're in completely different conferences, completely different. How'd this happen? So Padres move to Jacksonville or something and switch leagues. So then the Brewers and Padres can eventually match up. So that's what you're going to want to watch for when you want to figure out one of those two teams are going to win it, right? The Padres, most likely not the Brewers, are going to switch leagues because they're going to relocate. In San Diego, super cursed anyways, right? Teams are leaving just like the Chargers. So back to the Patriots thing. Like, how did I know like the Eagles were going to beat the Patriots if I did not think about the Super Bowl? Because I did not think about the 81 Super Bowl against the Raiders, right? And if I had thought it, I would have thought they were going to beat the Raiders for some reason, right? I in no way thought of the flip at that time. However, 81 and 18 are a flip, right? So Eagles lose Super Bowl in 81 to Raiders. They, win in 18, right? And they pay homage to the Tuck rule by strip sacking Tom Brady to end the game, right? So that's kind of a little Raiders tribute, in my opinion. That was the tribute to the Raiders. But how did I know? Just gut instinct, sincerely. It was 5 games into the season. This Eagles team I see get overhyped all the time, and I know they're going to suck. Like, this team's finally really good. I don't love this Carson Wentz guy, but he's certainly better than what's going on in the league, and, like, the rest of the team is just so solid I don't even care, right? Like, basically everything fundamentally Wentz did, it made me cringe. Like, whatever he would do, I would have done the opposite, right? Like, he spins right, I would have spun left. Right, like it's just like literally every single play I would see, there would be a play like, dude should have just absolutely taken his head off, but somehow the defender misses and judges well. I was like, how do all these guys not know how to tackle? Like, I'm glad it somehow works. Was like, is nobody ever going to just watch film on him and just wait for him to turn around, just absolutely helmet to helmet, just destroy his whole life, right? Like, enough of this stupid little duck and spin crap that's not even that cute or clever, and you do it the wrong way like an idiot, and you're not even looking downfield, and your throw mechanics are trash. You don't set your feet. Like, everything about you sucks. Like, you're just winning, so, like, I'll take it for now. Like, I don't know why we took you number 2 out of North Dakota State. Like, nobody in the world thought that was going to be our number 2 overall pick. Like, people booed Donovan McNabb, and we're talking about this guy like it's supposed to be a winner, and he's got red hair. Like, like all sorts of this. This doesn't feel right, right? Like, Carson Wentz. Like, that's not, like, a real name. Like, that's kind of like Donovan McNabb. Okay, all right, yeah, it's 2 last names or first names. Who knows? Neither, right? Just some ambiguous name. Like, whatever. So I roll with him, and I started saying, even with, I wasn't thinking, like, I felt good about Foles as a backup. Don't get me wrong, I loved that Foles was a backup. I was the biggest Foles fan, like, ever. Besides, like I said, Vic was my dude, but I loved Foles because, dude threw 7 touchdowns in one game, and, like, he was the best, like, piece of the Chip Kelly offense, Like, we had such bad quarterback play around that time. Like, he's this huge bright spot, and I had studied his whole career, and he was just, like, always just for what, like, he had the most inexplicable career ever. Like, he would be so good everywhere he would go, and they would just cut him. They're, like, not give him a real chance. It's like, what in the world is going on here? Like, he'd win a state championship, like, he'd win in college, he'd, do all this sort of stuff and just keep getting benched or released. And it's like, the Rams cut, like, 3 quarterbacks that year that all went on to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, and, like, when he got cut and came back, I was like, that was a mistake on whoever let him go. Like, he's too good for this. He should be starting for someone. And when he went to the Bears, I was like, that team, they can't ever figure out. They've never, ever, ever had a good quarterback. Ever. Right? They've had an okay one in Jim McMahon. Right? He's good. I love Jim McMahon. He's very entertaining. He's not, like, an elite quarterback. Right? So I just knew, like, the coaching, all that sort of stuff wasn't going to be there for him, and he was going to flame out of there. But, he came back I was like, all right, right on. Like, I could totally trust this guy. But, like, when Wentz went down, I knew they had to win that Rams game. Like, I just knew if the Eagles do not get the number 1 seed, like, and that's just how the Eagles are. Like, they have to get this bye week. There's no way they're going to win 3 and then win the Super Bowl. Like, it's just something about this team in general. Like, they've always needed to get that bye week, and they screw it up somehow. Like, they need to actually figure it out this time, no matter what. Like, and then they can figure out a way to just win 2 games, maybe get a lucky matchup in one, right? They can't play the Saints in the playoffs, period. If we ever play the Saints, we're going to lose. So, you got to somehow get lucky and have that not happen, right? So, then the Eagles are, right, they're playing the Rams. Jared Goff gets drafted number 1, Carson Wentz number 2. They're facing each other, right? Wentz goes down. They got the win. Now, I knew they needed that win, and that was the most important thing, but it still hurt about the Wentz thing. Like, I didn't exactly love it, but, like, I'm telling you, within an hour or 2 or whatever, I was literally jumping up and down, like, pumped up, like, no, this is right. Like, Foles knows exactly what to come in and do. Teams are going to, like, look past them. They're going to be underdogs now, even though they got the number 1 seed. Like, this is not the backup quarterback they should have let on this Eagles team. Like, this is not a true backup. This guy could easily have been the starter going in this year. We never needed to draft Wentz. Right? We should have never moved on from this guy. Right? So, I believed full-fledged in Foles, and it was going to be the Patriots sitting there on the other side. But like I said, can't be the Saints in the way. No way they can play the Saints. So they play the Falcons first round. Like, I don't get it. I guess they're the Super Bowl champs next year. This is lame. I don't care about the Falcons. An ugly game. Barely win it. Super happy. But like I said, it didn't feel super personal against the Falcons. That wasn't, like, my favorite matchup ever. The next one against the Vikings, you'd have to kind of be a diehard Eagles fan to understand why they needed that win to break the curse. First of all, like I said, you need to know that they need to avoid playing the Saints. And one of the most sketchiest, suspicious plays of all time, that Minneapolis Miracle or whatever, right, where the Saints rookie safety just decides to just completely look down at the ground and not even decide to attempt anything resembling what anyone was ever taught to do, tackling, and he's supposed to be, like, the last line of defense. Like, they just happen to have a rookie out there to be the scapegoat, right? You know what I mean? Dude just takes off, goes all the way down. Like, they were that close to having faced the Saints. I'm telling you, Eagles can't beat the Saints in the playoffs, not at this point in time, at least. Right? So that was just one we absolutely had to avoid at all costs. Somehow we managed to get Minnesota, blow them out. Now, the reason Minnesota was important, there was some weird, like, game, honestly. And I'm telling you, it's like, you just have to be an Eagles fan, know how it's like, oh, of course, like, this is going to be the worst thing ever. In Minnesota, they delayed a game because of snow to a Tuesday, right? And it just ruined the whole rhythm of the whole season for the Eagles that year. And, like, they were cursed at that point. Like, it clearly, like, that's, like, what caused, like, a mini rebuild or something of sorts, right? So that Minneapolis win there, Minnesota, that got that curse off the back, right? So that's what was important. They didn't have to face the Saints as well, like 2-for-1, right? So Minnesota played a huge role in the Eagles being able to advance to the Super Bowl. And what do you know? It's the Patriots we need right there. And of course, you know, like, craziest game ever. Eagles run a whole play that's never been ran before with a super cute name called the Philly Special. They can only run it because, you know, they got like 3 tight ends on the team that can all catch balls like you wouldn't believe, right? Like, they're just like embarrassment of riches at the tight end position. Basically, my whole life, the Eagles have always had good tight ends. Like, very few years have we not had like someone that's at least incredibly underrated, you know, all that sort of stuff. So, like I said, that's why you know, started believing that. The Red Sox thing, what do you know? They win on the 100th year anniversary of the curse in 2018. You know, 1918, 2018, 100th year anniversary of the curse of Bambino. Trade Mookie Betts, then he's now won 2 World Series with the Dodgers. And you look down the line, oh, well, you know, 2068 rolls around, right? They might lose that one. And then 2086 happens to be the 68-year anniversary, invert of 68 or of 86, right? Reverse the curse, get it? And 2086, perfect 100-year anniversary of the worst curse moment, right? The Buckner thing, right? So that's a big part of it. I mean, like I said, there's definitely more teams that I believe, a lot of, you know, good fights gone my way, but fights are like kind of like 50-50, right? Like, I believed in Diaz to beat McGregor, right? Like, I'm not going to go too deep into the fight stuff, but I would say, like, you know, the Douglas upsetting Tyson thing, certainly highly suspicious. The Namath guarantee Super Bowl, biggest underdogs ever, upset, super suspicious. They've never won since. They say deal with the devil, all that sort of stuff, right? So I I can't prove any one thing is happening, right? Like, I can't prove that, you know, it's Vegas, it's the league, it's God, it's fate, right? Like, I really don't know. Anytime I get one of these right, like when the Red Sox won in '04, like, that was spooky to me, right? Like, oh man, I knew that was going to happen. Like, I kind of didn't want to know, right? Like, that's why I think most people couldn't possibly understand. Like, it's not some big, super cocky thing. Like, I believe, like, anybody who has ever experienced things like that, like, it's humbling. Like, oh, there's something way bigger than me going on. And it's like, whoa. The best way I could put it, right? So, that's what I said, blew my mind, like, just happening at the Red Sox thing, right? And that's why it's like, you got all these guys on YouTube with the gematria and doing gematria calculators. I'm not saying gematria isn't something you should know, but don't trust somebody else's interpretation of it, right? Like, just teach yourself, right? I managed to figure out 86 in 1986 was good enough when I was right. Maybe you can believe that as a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. That's where I come up with my theories. I don't believe in coincidences, right? And some teams, they just got way too many. And, you know, you look at pretty much any team that's ever won, you can, like, bro, this is just insane. And it's like the same thing with the history books. Like, there's all these coincidences, all the same names. Like, George Washington might be, you know, King George, you know, as well. Like, all that sort of stuff. Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis are the same person, right? Like, you know, maybe those things aren't true, right? Maybe those people never existed. Who knows, right? But to me, sports out, like, don't hurt, there are always like a billion hilarious names and nicknames. Like, it's always overly entertaining, right? Like, someone's writing it to be entertaining. Now, you know, and like, most people will just take it as like anything can happen. Oh, Kurt Warner Arena Football comes in. Yeah, that proves anything could happen. If it was rigged, they would have wanted the Cowboys to win or the Steelers again. Like, you know, people think like, oh, if it's rigged, the Yankees would have 200 World Series. Like, the lamest crap ever. Like, no, if it's rigged, it's going to be the most entertaining products ever, which when 9 of the 10 or 19 of the 20 most viewed television shows ever are Super Bowls, like, yeah, they're doing something right, dude. People complain all the time about how boring these league is. You can't ever stop talking about it, right? Like that's what I like. Anytime I come with one of these series, and like I said, it's people I prove wrong to. Like so, it's not like I can't back it up. Like it'll be like, oh, the league's just too boring. Like your script it would be the best year ever, but leagues are just too boring, right? I'm like they just did the most unlikely World Series ever. Like how are these leagues boring? Like I couldn't come up with like I believe I could write some script stuff, but I wouldn't come up with everything these guys get. And there's stuff I come up with that they don't do, but they do just enough to make me think like, oh, they considered that. Like they traded him to somebody else. Like that guy still got moved, just not to the team I wanted. Like that was like, like it's just like, oh, we got something better. Don't worry, right? And then they do. Like that's what I'm saying. Like these guys can really write. Like if you think the Chiefs repeating was boring, like I understand, and it's not my flavor, certainly, right? You probably lean more towards the underdog type teams, right? But there's a billion reasons. Like, there's a billion things that you could have thought, like, looked at and been like, there ain't no way that team's losing, and you would have been right, right? If it had nothing to do with football, and then a billion reasons to do have to do with football, right? Like, they stacked that team. They made that pretty obvious. What else they do? They made the odds super short, right? They gave you that one, right? Why they give you that one? Because they're about to break Vegas when the Lions beat the Browns. So ain't nobody's got that. Even if you got Lions, you took them over the Chiefs, to be honest. You probably weren't even lucky enough to take them over the Steelers, which is the only one I would say. If you're going to argue with me on Lions Browns, that's the only one that's not like an insult to the game of football. Like Lions over Browns at least has some narrative weight and would be an excellent Super Bowl down the line. Browns Lions has to happen first. Only two teams that have never made it from the OG teams. Only two teams, other two teams that haven't done it are Texans and Jaguars, right? Some BS expansion teams, right? So the only two OG teams, they played each other all the time. Championship in the 50s. Browns rattled off 8 championships. Lions came away with 4. They're like the two biggest college teams that go back and forth every single year. The biggest rivalry. Like they used to exchange a trophy between the two NFL teams, between who won Cleveland Browns versus Detroit Lions, right? Like it's just people somehow think that like the league doesn't care about those two teams, but those are two of the most prized teams. I promise you, it's at least top half, top 10. Gotta be. The league doesn't even work without the Browns. Like the way the Browns innovated football, like from the very beginning, like every great coach you can think of is somehow like a descendant of Paul Brown. And like I said, I'm not some big Paul Browns or Browns fan. I didn't even know most of this stuff. Sincerely, I always kind of just thought like, ugh. Right, like what's that helmet? They got no swagger? Like Cleveland, I hate Cleveland. I went there, it sucked. Right, like it's the most hated place I ever went to in my life. Right, so with no disrespect to anybody who lives in Cleveland now, right? That was my experience as a kid. I would like to visit Cleveland now, sincerely. So don't take offense to that. I just, a little too young to appreciate the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I thought it was boring. Sorry. And the weather sucked. So, and there's like I said, tornado canceled the SeaWorld trip. So don't hate me, Cleveland. But yeah, I'm not some big Browns fan by any stretch of the imagination. Have always noticed some weird connections between like the Eagles will be more involved with certain teams. One of those teams was the Browns. They're always very involved with the Browns as far as like trading, somehow managing to lose to the Browns when you would never expect them to. There's some other teams that they'd always seem to trade with the Colts, that sort of stuff. Coaches go back and forth between the two teams. You notice these little like coincidences, these little storylines, all that sort of stuff. But see, like I imagine you probably understand to some capacity why Lions Browns would be epic. Like it's probably been floated to you at some point. Probably even last year they probably hyped that up big and I missed it because I was like late to the party. I wasn't trying to get in on football, right? Like I just kind of started like, oh, I think they're actually gonna start having some interesting stuff happen. I think the Chiefs dynasty is about to end soon, and some big's gonna happen. It feels like some Red Sox stuff or whatever. Now, the reason I believe so strongly, specifically with the Lions, like I said, you'd have to watch the other video if you want all the coding and all that sort of stuff, right? But as far as like they're the code of my dreams. I can't put it any other way. Like, as soon as I started thinking stuff ain't right and they're probably hiding it in the numbers, I thought there would be a team with around 3, 4, 5 championships that had a back to back in there, and if you flipped them, it would just be overly obvious in some way what was going on. And the Lions one really wasn't overly obvious, but as soon as I looked at it and I noticed all four of them had a 5 and there was a flip and a back to back, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is so it. Like, and like, they just felt extra religious in a way. I don't want to like speculate on which tribe, but that's a hint, right? Like, it just felt like the Lion of Judah or something like that. And like I said, like, I can't really explain, like, I don't know what this number means, all sort of stuff. Like 86 on the Red Sox, I knew 86 said, that's to get rid of something. That's all I knew. I didn't know all these, this number means this, and this, I still don't. And I still don't believe most people are telling you the truth with any of that stuff. Sincerely. But I do think you should be flipping numbers, you should be looking for patterns, turning things upside down, you name it. All that sort of stuff is right. Right? But I think the magic is in, like, it's right in your face. Like, it's there to be solved by anybody. You don't have to be some genius, like, oh, I'm the smartest guy in the world. I think I did the best detective work. I think I found the story everyone else slept on, and I think a lot of people know, and they specifically do things so you won't. Sincerely, I think I'm one of the few people that's like, if the world's the way I perceive it, and there's like normal people and then people on the end, I'm one of the normal or not normal. Maybe most the normal people are all in on it, right? But I'm the outside of the club guy who's just smart enough to figure some stuff out sometimes, right? And they messed up with this one. I'm telling you, man, any other year, like, they just did it perfectly the wrong time. Like, I started waking up again, started paying attention, started sniffing around. It's a team that I looked to pretty early on because I was kind of like Barry. I noticed the Mavs 25 curse or title when it happened, that release. Like, that's kind of weird. Why is it called 25? It's 2014. Barry's on it? That's dope. Played the hell out of it. Right? But I always thought it was weird. You know what I mean? So, like, just stuff like that, just all at the wrong time. But basically, I want to talk about, like, they always tell you it's like a Christian nation or something like that. Like, I have no idea what anybody is, right? I think it's all one big religion. I think they're all in on the same thing, right? Like, they just, believe in whatever they believe in, right? And I believe in whatever I believe in. I can't describe it, right? But I think a lot of the organized religion is to keep you away from the truth, of course. But I'm not going to go too deep into all that. But basically what I wanted to get at was with, like, these athletes and, like, who have you ever heard a player in the NFL, like, it's always, he's a strong believer that everything happens for a reason and it was just meant to be and it'll work out all right. You know what I mean? Like, there's never just a guy like, yeah, I believe nothing ever happens for a reason and it's just not fair and it won't work out, but I'm just out here busting my butt to prove everybody wrong. You know what I mean? Like, there's never that nihilist guy. Like, everybody, even like the biggest thug, they're religious, all that sort of stuff. And you can say it's branding or whatever, but, like, wouldn't just, like, the occasional guy keep it real or something? You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just like they're all playing these characters, all sort of stuff. Like, they rub it in your face that it's some big cult ritual or something. You know what I mean? And it's just a shame. Like, I know if you love football and you're the type of person who would probably get geeked on Browns Lions and hearing something like this in a prediction, you're probably might be fascinated by what I'm saying. But, like, it's gotta hurt. If you hadn't considered this and you actually think I'm halfway telling the truth or I'm right about stuff like it, so stuff's maybe adding up in your head a little bit, like, yeah, maybe Kurt's sock wasn't bloody. Maybe when you find out a bat's corked, that's part of the play too, right? You know what I mean? They're telling you it's fake without telling you it's fake. So, and pretty much everybody thinks it's rigged to some capacity at some point, right? And you can say it's just fans, being bitter or like, oh, I could do better than that. But it's like, you look at that Tua, like, fumble recovery, like, to me, it's so obviously bad acting. No way that dude was trying to do anything with that ball. Like, see, just the bit, like, to me, it looked like the most, like, literally an uncoordinated, like, small girl flailing about who's never been anywhere near a football, doesn't understand how it bounces, right? Like, nobody would react and panic like that. Like, even in the NFL, you gotta know you got a little bit more time than that. Like, dudes aren't just waking up in the backfield. Like, first of all, why'd you even drop the snap to begin with? Like, it's a little bit high, so you can just act like an idiot and just pop it up. Like, you don't have to try to tip it. We can just tip it to themselves. Like that Ravens interception that should have been seal the game and the must win. For her first game I called all season, I said Browns have to win this Ravens game. No doubt about it. They have to win this Ravens game. I haven't called any. I've said they can keep screwing up, keep screwing this one. They can't. They got to win this one. It's the one you're going to say they can't do. They have to win this one. And they did it, right? But what did it take? Someone just completely forgetting how to catch a ball. Like, not even, like, just catching it, like, hit him in the hands and drop it. Like, he had, like, 10 tries, it seemed like, to catch. It was like watching Kawhi Leonard's shot bounce 7 times off the rim. Right? Like, just bounce off his hands over and over. Like, eventually it's got to go in, right? Eventually he's got to catch it. Nope. And then you see the Steelers, like, basically the same thing, but they figure out how to not be complete idiots and fumble the game away. Like, they can just catch it. Right? Like that, and there's so many times like that to where it'll be like, this is how things are going this week, and it'll be like the exact same ending, but like the opposite at the end, a little twist. Like one will be like, oh, they go all the way, and like they get a Hail Mary attempt, but they don't get it, and then the other team gets it. You know what I mean? Like in a different game, right after the other primetime game, right? Like the Thursday night game to kick it all off, like had the same narrative as the Monday night game to end it, right? So just a little stupid stuff like that. I feel like I did good. Like I said, I really, I know I just throw numbers at people. Like, oh, just give you 100 numbers, 100 reasons to believe in the Browns, all that sort of stuff. The Browns are the only team to have never even hosted a Super Bowl at this point that's not an expansion team. So, like I said, they got they need the dome, all that sort of stuff. I could just rehash all the reasons. Like I said, I just wanted to give you a more personal reason. Also, just so I'm telling you the truth. Like, yeah, maybe I'm wrong, right? I didn't write the script. They don't have to do what I say. It's just what I think they're telling me is happening, and I don't think I did it all myself. I think I get help. I don't think I'm super, the most intelligent person in the world or whatever. I think I try to be humble about it. I how do I start approaching who's going to win the Super Bowl? How do I figure out who's going to win the Super Bowl? Do I have an idea and do I work backwards? No. My thought is, holy hell, how am I going to do that? Where do you even start? How do you even start to figure out how they're rigging a Super Bowl for a team? Right? And it's like, well, look around. Like, what do they teach you in class? Like, what's the stuff they make sure you have to learn in English? Like alliterations and rhymes, and like, why do they care about puns? And like, so it's got to be important. Like, you need to know this stuff. Like, it's not just they want you to be funny, right? It's not, for some reason this stuff's important. So like, oh, puns and names, that sort of stuff. Like, and then the YouTube comments. Sincerely, I've gotten so much more help from not my YouTube comments. I wish. I've gotten some great YouTube comments on like the Trevor videos and stuff, but y'all like they don't even seem to like interact. I don't know if like they don't show me comments y'all leave or whatever, but I get really sketchy comments. Sincerely, I probably get the sketchiest comments on YouTube, like people dropping my real name, saying like, you don't know what groups you're messing with, do you? Like, just like crazy stuff, like like, oh, it don't intimidate me. It's like, yeah, I'm on YouTube. I don't think you can figure out my name? Like, come on. I think I told you my name. Like, I ain't scared of you. It ain't someone saying hi. I'll probably be the same one that said the other thing, popping up way later, right? Like, and they didn't start until the Trevor Moore thing. And as far as like, like, I gotta tell you this experience. I just have to. Like, I don't know what it means. Might be nothing. Maybe, this helps you make your opinion up about me. Like, this guy's just nuts, right? But I've had a lot of experiences to where I thought for sure I was going to die. And I mean that. To the point to where I'm not positive I didn't. In some, like, Maybe every one of those I did popped up in a different timeline or something, right? But specifically, I just got chills. Okay, so it was only about a year ago, a little bit more at this point. Right after, I don't know how long ago I did the Trevor Moore video. We should probably take a look. Alright, so let's take a look. See when we did the Trevor Moore video. I hope there wasn't anything sketchy in any of those pics. Oh, well, it's Trevor Moore. 2 years. So it was like, yeah, I guess I was living there. Okay. So yeah, I guess about 2 years ago now, I uploaded the Trevor Moore thing. I cannot prove any of these things are related, but I just have to walk you through what actually happened, and you tell me what you would think if you were me and you had these lines of thoughts leading up to it, right? So I dropped that Trevor Moore video. Now, I do not believe he died. If you want to understand where I'm coming from, watch Man on the Moon. I think he pulled an Andy Kaufman on us, sincerely. And I think they do that with a lot of their celebrities, right? I think he's probably playing some famous politician and athlete, something on the world stage right now, right? Maybe even another comedian. That's probably actually the most likely. They seem to do that a lot. Like, if you believe Richard Pryor could be Steve Harvey, which I do, they seem to reinvent themselves. He's not doing the same brand of comedy, I'd imagine, right? But you stick to what you're good at. And he's also a good musician. So he might be like a famous musician. They might be. Dude, Trevor Moore could be like Keith Urban, right? Or something, dude. I'd never even be surprised. Not even a little bit. So, it's not like I think, like a lot of people would think, like, oh, the Rogans crew were after you, right? You better not mess with that guy. He's gonna, right? I don't believe that at all. I think, Rogan was just in on the joke, right? And like it's hard to say, right? First of all, Rogan's not that funny, and his timing kind of sucks, and he doesn't understand humor like at all. So, making a bad joke that's a little bit too revealing and not is as tactful or subtle as that group in their elite comics would have usually delivered that line probably was more jarring than intended, right? Probably stuck out to my ears a lot sharper than it should have. I mean, that one hit me like a ton of, ooh, something's wrong here. Something, I didn't catch it right away. At first, I did think what most people would leave, like, oh, Joe had something to do with that. Right now, like I said, I believe it's some big haha, we're in the fake what club, like we disappear, come back, fooled you, make you cry over nothing, right? Do it over and over again. I'll make you cry over the same person 8 times, they're still here, right? That's how I think they get you, right? If you get sad about someone, if you cry about someone, you automatically believe everything else about them, right? They got you. If they got an emotional connection to you, you're done. And that's why I think you can't bet on sports if you have an emotional connection. Like, you have to be able to understand the emotional connection, and you need to be able to feel like what that team's psychology needs to be and like what will happen and when. But you can't, like, I need my Eagles to win. But it just can't. It can't be, right? And as far as, like, me successfully fading my Eagles, that Eagles Super Bowl run where they lost to the Chiefs, my buddy put $200 on them, and I said, like, man, I understand, like, you're a really good college guy, right? Like, and this is, like, I mean, like, in a way that translates to pro success. Like, he tells you what teams are going to draft what. Like, he knows pros just well, too, but, like, he knows football, right? Like, pro college and pro, the whole deal. He knows everything going down, right? So he saw what, like, the Eagles were up to. He's like, ain't no way this team's not winning the Super Bowl, dude. You know what I mean? He was right. He made it all the way there, right? But he's betting on football stuff, right? He couldn't have guessed the fix, a little fix for the Chiefs. They're going to come out slide and all that sort of stuff, right? But even though Mahomes is hurt, this Eagles pass rush somehow can't get to him because none of them can dig their cleats into the turf, right? It's just slippery. It's an ice field somehow in Arizona, right? So, basically, like, yeah, so, like, I told him, I was like, man, I don't know, dude, because, like maybe it's just me, and I know a lot of teams do pack pop back up and win again like the Red Sox did. But like the Red Sox like always wanted to be the Yankees. Like the Eagles, like I don't think we ever wanted to be the Cowboys. We were proud of our team. We just wanted one to validate all the other stuff we had done. Like we never needed to have like 4 and 5, in my opinion. Now, that's not to say they're not going to get there. I don't think the Eagles are done winning championships. It was just really soon. I'm like 4 years. Like I know it's what have you done for me lately, but like this group of guys, like Jalen Hurts, like really, like. I mean, I guess technically, like, the pedigree and all that sort of stuff, but it's like, I just, like, he's a little soft. You know what I mean? Like, just a lot about it. I was like, all the guys that we really cared about are gone. Like, there's almost nobody here. You know what I mean? Like, Brandon Graham's, like, one of the only ones still around, and that was when I hit on him super hard. I knew that guy, even after the injury rookie year, and everybody's like, oh, he's done. Like, no, he's going to be way better than Pierre Paul. No doubt. So I was right on him. As far as oh man, sorry, I know this is going over an hour. I hope you're interested. So I know we're kind of running out of steam. Not running out of things to say. It's just I didn't even expect to do this one. So this has truly just been we're just rolling, just telling you what's what, right? Like just trying to keep it real so you understand where I'm coming from. You know, these are real picks, not some idiot that might get lucky somehow and then be like, see, I told you, but really I was just had the clown nose. I was like, look how I backed into that. Like, no, I believe this. If it's not this, even if it's Lions over Steelers, what I said is possible, I'm gonna be devastated. I can't even explain. Like, that one wouldn't be as bad as, like, Lions-Chiefs, which, like I said, is the third most likely and still technically okay. But there's no good storylines there. Like, no, I can't say none, but it just doesn't. But like I said, if the Browns didn't exist, the Steelers storyline would be great. The Lions-Steelers, that would be awesome. If the Browns didn't exist. But they do. And it's a way better story. So they need to do that. And it, like, wraps up the whole thing perfectly. But like at least the Steelers somehow tie into the curse. Like Bobby Lane was traded to the Steelers and they went from dumpster fire to this great, team, and then they went and they won the only Super Bowl in Detroit. Right? Like I can buy if it's somehow the Steelers. I'm not gonna be raging saying like it's just the least entertaining league ever. I'm be mad. Don't get me wrong, I'm be hot. Like I cannot believe they burned my Browns like this. Like this is just, like I said, it's not even my Browns. It's just I picked them because I think that's what they should do. Right? That's what I think they've set up in like all the hints, all the it's like you can say I have confirmation bias, all that sort of stuff. It's like I tell you what I'm looking for: 68s and 86s, baby. And you're telling me literally 2 days ago, yesterday, worst Browns loss of the season. I didn't say it's can't lose. But it was one of like, you can't lose this combination. You can't lose the Chargers and the Broncos. No way. So like, it's like, well, okay, well, you instantly, now you have to beat the Broncos and go on some crazy streak, right? You know what I mean? It's like, in my head, like the worst loss of the season up to that point. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, that made it so much harder on you. Like, you guys just can't do yourselves any favors besides that Ravens win, can you? And somehow lucking out with that Jaguars win being over an AFC team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you've only lost one division game so far somehow. Like, you guys are so lucky you're not completely dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're talking about you need some help from this team and that team and this and that. And, you know what I mean? You guys got to close out with 6 in a row, but they shouldn't even have that. Right? Like, they should be dead right here, right now. Sincerely. Like, this should be an AFC conference that does not allow for a 9-8 team to make it, but they're going to. There's going to be several, I believe. And the Browns at 9-8 are absolutely going to be good enough. No doubt. There's 9 teams in the AFC with losing records right now. That was supposed to be the better conference going into the season. I knew that was smoke. I promise you that. So that leaves 7 teams with a winning record, right? There's 7 slots to make the playoffs now. It used to only be 6. Thank God the Browns didn't try to pull this, 10, 15 years ago, or not even that long ago, right? They have to pull it when there's 7 spots. One of those teams there is the Broncos at 5-4. You play them head to head. They play the Chiefs twice. Yikes. Yeah, Browns don't have an easy road, but they don't play the Chiefs twice. I think they will when it's all said and done, and I think they'll win it. But being scheduled twice for, against the Chiefs, rookie Bo Nix, who I did say would be good, who I did say was going to be their Elway, but Elway didn't do it for a long, long time, right? Yeah, they're gonna get snubbed. I think the Chargers can get snubbed too. I think every single AFC North team makes it, as crazy as that sounds, because it's set up just right for it to happen. It's the only way that mathematically, not that the Browns can make it. The Browns can make all sorts of ways. This isn't some cope to say the Browns have to, all the AFC North teams have to make for the Browns to make it, or the Chargers have to miss. Now the Chargers can make it and the Browns make it just fine. They need to beat the Broncos. Browns got to make up ground. They got to make up 3 games on the Broncos. They got a head-to-head and a game against the Chiefs when the Broncos have to play the Chiefs twice, right? That should be an easy way to make up 2. Now, as far as like the psychology, like how this is the only way the Browns could, one, make it to the Super Bowl, but then B, be a team who makes it but then somehow lose it. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. The script writers did it right on the money. They couldn't have done it any better if I wanted to believe this team was going to win. Sincerely, it's not what I would have necessarily predicted, but it's not far from it, right? I just would have thought, I would have been like, man, everybody's saying I'm asking too much. I'm jumping the shark, acting like the whole AFC is going to just like be trash, right? Like the Jaguars, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Titans, the Colts, and the Browns are all going to have losing records 9 games into the season, you would have said I'm lying, right? You wouldn't have bought that. So, of course, I couldn't start my Browns out 2-7. But I would have said, start them as bad as you possibly can. Make them look absolutely bad. Because they love that. They love to do that. The Athletics, Moneyball Athletics, hello. They went like 5-16 for a stretch, then set the record for longest win streak in a row, 20 straight, after trading away everybody of value on the whole roster. Guess who is the Chiefs strategy officer for the Browns? It's Paul DePodesta, Jonah Hill's character in Moneyball. Everybody gives Brad Pitt's character credit, Billy Bean or whatever. Like, DePodesta's the one that gave him the idea, right? Like, DePodesta is the analytics guy. 9 games is too small of a sample size, right? Like, they're going to, Jameis Winston's going to get revenge over the Saints. They love to do that stupid revenge game, right? So he gets that revenge game over the Saints. Then he gets hurt against the Steelers. I'm pretty sure DTR comes in and instantly gets hurt too. But what's more important than DTR getting hurt or Jameis Winston getting hurt, even though I think both happens, is Bailey Zapp starts the second matchup against the Steelers, right? Because the Browns are going to win against the Saints, then they're going to lose the very next week. They're going to be 3-8. Believe that. The Browns will be 3-8, and then they're reeling off 6 in a row against some of the toughest teams in the league. The Dolphins are going to be catching fire by then. They're not going to actually make a run to do anything, right? But they're going to be playing the proper Dolphins around that time. And all 6 of those in a row, guess what? 6 weeks of Hard Knocks, baby. First time they're ever doing a whole division. I'm predicting all 4 teams make it. What would be the most shocking thing to happen on Hard Knocks? Would it be all 4 teams doing well? No one's suspecting that, right? So there you are. Oh, but it's mathematically why I'm saying if the AFC North teams were to be in a position like to be heading into tiebreaker type scenarios, why all of those teams would make it. Now, first of all, if all of the AFC North teams want to make it, the Chargers have to finish 1 game below the Browns. Like I said, the Browns don't have to finish better than the Chargers to make it, but for the Bengals to also make it, the Chargers have to finish 1 game below the Browns because the Chargers will eliminate the Browns in a tiebreaker because they got the head-to-head match. But any other team you can think of, assuming the Browns take care of the Broncos, the Broncos are going to, the Bengals, all them, pretty much everybody's going to have like the same conference record, same division record, all that sort of stuff, right? But anybody in the AFC North, Bengals, Browns, whoever's going to be around that 9-8, maybe even the Steelers or Ravens if something crazy happens, right? They're all going to have the tiebreaker on strength of schedule, which is like the final one they go to after they go to conference and division, because those are going to be like the same. When they go to strength of schedule, it's going to be just a bloodbath. Like, are you kidding me? You got 4 teams in the AFC North, even though, yeah, they struggled. They all got a winning record right now. Let's look around. Okay, uh, the Bills. Who do you guys? Are the Jets trying to make the wild card? Maybe. Like, okay, sorry, you play the Dolphins and Patriots twice a year. You're done, right? Look over at the Broncos or the Chargers. Sorry, you play the Raiders twice. I'm sorry, they're getting the number one pick or something like that, right? And then you look at the only other division, the Colts maybe trying to squeak in there. Man, the Titans, dog, the Jaguars, twice. It's not gonna cut it. It's just not gonna cut it. So that's where I'm at. Like, you can be like, oh, all that sort of stuff. Is exactly how I would have done it. You can say like, oh, everything's gone wrong. No, so is there ways they could be 2-7? I wouldn't believe. Oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah. They've done so many things just right. I predicted that Jameis and Deshaun both had to win games or a game, right? They couldn't just lose everything. They did just enough, right? So that's just a tiny bit. That's not the big part. Why did Watson get hurt? In a no doubter, like no whispers of him coming back, just Achilles, forget about it. If they were just going to be horrible, that's the perfect scapegoat to keep there. They wouldn't have had to move a single thing. You know what I mean? To me, that's the hope. And I think that's why Browns fans like booed/cheered, because they finally had hope. And they do believe in Winston, right? And I think that's why, like what would have really scared me is if Winston would have came out last week against the Chargers, he would have threw like 4 touchdowns and they lost. I would have had no hope. The losses have to continue to be on the passing game. The Browns have to be a team that are just a quarterback away. And that's what I've seen so far. Especially last week. The offensive line was amazing. All day to pass. The best push tush you've ever seen. Like, had no reason to, or, possibility to seemingly to get that fourth down conversion. They charged forward like 3 yards after getting stuffed. Right? Craziest what I've ever seen. Sincerely. And then, is defense minus one safety, like you gotta get the better coverage, all that sort of stuff. Like, even if they do a fire sale, like, I don't want them to trade Garrett. Don't get me wrong, that would have me nervous. Right? Pretty much anybody else, like, if they're not like a perfect culture fit, like, I don't want Njoku going, and I don't want Chubb going. But pretty much anybody else, this is an analytics team. Like, they're going off the numbers, right? Like, that's the story. And the Moneyball teams, they seem to be able to get deep and lose right at the end. That's what we want the Browns to do, right? Okay, the psychology of it, okay? It's the only reason they could, like, get hot enough to make a Super Bowl run. All that sort of stuff, like, with the regular season going the way it's going, right? So, Bailey Zapp, when Bailey Zapp comes in, it all clicks. Right? When he starts against the Steelers that second time in Pittsburgh, he's already beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh before. He's only got a handful of career wins, but he's got one on the road in Pittsburgh, on the road in Denver, and he's beaten the Browns and the Lions each, right? That's 3 of the 9 wins we need the rest of the way, right? Or I guess if you count the Saints one before the loss, we need 10 total, right? And I had whoever came in, well, that doesn't really matter, right? So it's just, as far as why the momentum, like all that sort of stuff would work perfectly, right? Because like if Zappy comes in and he beats the Saints in Pittsburgh, like, you don't understand. That's not some anything can happen. Like, the Browns just never can get the Steelers. Like, especially in Pittsburgh, like that, it's just so one-sided. It's unreal. It's not like the other ones, and the other ones are kind of one-sided too, but that one's just like, forget about it. I can't even tell you I think Tim Couch was quarterback last time they won in Pittsburgh, and they play twice a year. Think about it. Like, it's worse than when the Eagles owned the Giants for so long, right? So, like, that's the big ask, right? But they got the right quarterback to do it. So when he comes in and they beat the Steelers, I mean, Cleveland's gonna be rocking. I don't care about 4-8. They're gonna be rocking. They've beaten the Steelers and the Ravens so far, right? They're gonna be feeling good. They're gonna be like, we're playing with house money. Whatever happens, happens. We only got 5 more. We finished 5-1 to finish season last year. We're just asking for it to win these last 5. We can do it. I believe in Zappy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he's going to come in, and he's just going to be getting the ball out quicker. He's making those smart Tom Brady type reads, or he's going to throw some dumb picks too. But he's going to give you chances to win, right? and he's going to get comebacks, all that sort of stuff. He's always continue putting in a chance to win, and they're going to need every win. Zappy, like I'm saying, they need as soon as they click, they're going to peak right then, and they never let off the gas until the wheels fall off in the Super Bowl. Right, that's how the momentum works. Like they're gonna be the hottest team going into the playoffs. Nobody wants to face, right? And it's gonna be like in order. I think they're gonna go to Houston and knock them out. They're gonna go to Buffalo and knock them out, and then eventually the Chiefs, right? I don't know who knocks off like the other teams, like here or there, right? So you could probably have the Chiefs beating the Ravens again. That works, right? Just rematch it, make it be like, oh, is it? But like seriously, on the other end, there's all sorts of teams I like for the Lions to beat on the way, but Buccaneers in the NFC Championship, even though they ran it last year and it was earlier, like that feels so right to me. Like imagine how many people are gonna be screaming that it's rigged for a Chiefs three-peat if the final four teams are Chiefs. Like the only thing standing in the way of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs three-peating is Bailey Zappi's Browns, Hendon's Lions, right? Not even Jared Goff, Hendon's Lions, and Baker Mayfield's Buccaneers. You think anybody's going to think any one of those three teams has a chance to beat the Chiefs? Because my suspicion on the Browns beating the Chiefs the first time, I think Patrick Mahomes gets like a concussion going into that game. Or like some little ankle thing or whatever. Like he's going to have some sort of excuse, right? Like I don't think he's actually there for that one, right? And they got to beat Carson Wentz. So so when they're rolling back around, it's like, yeah, they didn't beat the real Chiefs, right? And they got to do a narrowhead now. Like, good luck, Zappy. You know what I mean? But then it's like I said, he was just on Patrick Mahomes' practice spot just a minute ago. Had the same coach at Texas Tech. What do you know? So many coincidences. So definitely watch my other video if you want to know like the reasons, the logic of why the teams are gonna win. But this is like the emotional, like I said, like the history of my experience with sports. If you want to know like the craziest, sports stories ever that I didn't mention, not ones that like I had necessarily, but just ones like you look at, look at the Friday Night Lights story, Odessa Permian, right? Like they didn't have some crazy amount of losses or whatever. Nobody would have picked them after Booby went down, right? Or the team that almost got relegated in the Premier League, right? Like literally almost got the whole team sent down a division, right? Because they were so bad and they somehow win the whole thing, right? What do you know? So, like, to me, there's no better story in the NFL than the Browns, so why would I possibly think any different now? Like, oh, wow, they're set up perfectly. You know what I mean? Not according to your football odds, right? Like, we want to be in a way better position. They're in way better position than they deserve. Based on starting Deshaun Watson for as long as I said. To me, that's the sign. That's the cue that I'm right. And, we'll see. Time will tell. It's certainly not going to be something I can easily bounce back from. Like I said, it's not going to take away the Guardians pick next year or Dolphins 2047 or Red Sox 2086. But you better believe I'm going to be way less motivated to be maybe figuring out like Chargers or even Cowboys or any of the other like seemingly cursed teams, Bears, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just I'm not going to trust my judgment because I believe so strongly. There's so many signs. Like I said, I believe I believe more somehow that the Dolphins are going to win in 2047 because that is like I talk about the Dolphins or like the Lions one being the one of my dreams. That was like the second one of my dreams after I started believing because I cracked the Dolphins. Like the Dolphins is like, oh man, I can't even explain to you. Like it's good. The Red Sox one is like more interesting and elaborate, but like the Dolphins one is just like no brainer. Like obviously it's right here. Like it's just so clean, so smooth. So yup, that's it. Like they didn't give you a lot to work with, and if you even think through it a little bit and look at the storylines, like they're making it pretty obvious. This is when it's going down. So like that's the one. Somehow the Dolphins and Red Sox I feel equally good about, but for completely different reasons. Like the Dolphins one, I think you can look at and not have spent like I can explain to you in 5 minutes, right? Like boom, 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 boom. Like it's perfect, right? The Red Sox one is like you want to learn the whole history of baseball. You know what I mean? So that's why it's like the Red Sox one. Yeah, it's better, but you better be down for learning about some baseball history and curses and stuff to really understand it. Same with the Lions. right? Like the Lions is the equivalent of the Red Sox. The Dolphins is its own beast. It's just the perfect code. The Dolphin G code is my crown jewel, and I'm more excited if something happens where I'm not around in 2047. That's gonna be the one thing. It's like, oh man, somehow like that's out of all things I could possibly miss out on. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see myself right on 24/7. I don't need to see it. That one I do believe so strongly, right? Like it's gonna happen, right? But that's pretty much about, like I said, as strongly as I believed the Red Sox were gonna win, and they did, and I believe they're gonna win. Again, like that's how much I believe in these lines. But there's not many more to choose from on the horizon, and like I said, it would just be such a huge confidence blow because I truly, with all my heart, believe this is what they're doing right now. Now, that being said, if they pop up and they run Lions versus Browns next year, am I going to like be down in the dumps or whatever? Like, I'm certainly not going to be thrilled about it, but I'm going to give myself full credit. Let's be real. Would you really think I go? Couldn't possibly, like, it's still got a 5 in it, right? You know what I mean? 2025 to 2026. It's just not how I would have done it. Like, it's Super Bowl 59. Like, don't they want a 5 in the year? It's perfect. Everybody's dropping dead now. Why do you do it next year? It's all set up. Lions have the best record. Browns have the worst. Like, it's just too perfect. So, yeah. So keep this in mind. If it is Lions versus Browns and the Lions win, and it's the quarterbacks I told you to, right? Neither one of the quarterbacks I'm telling you starting the Super Bowl right now are starting on either one of these teams. So think about that if it does happen, right? If it's Hendon versus Bailey Zappi, starting quarterback Lions versus Browns, and the Lions win, beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether it's rigged, whether it's God, whatever, I do it, right? And you better listen on whatever I have to say going forward, because I ain't going to tell you every single team's going to win it every year. I'm not going to say every single sport. I think we're in a good era for sports, like right this minute, like next year, two ish, we're going to get some really good stuff. And we're not too far removed, like I said, from best World Series ever, basically. And not too long ago from the one before that. Like, they never make you wait like too long, right? But I can't say, like you get that magic feeling, right? Like, oh wow, smack you right in the face, they're doing this, right? Like, there's none on the horizon. Like, we might get lucky. I might start getting a whiff of the teams, but if it's some Yankees or some Chiefs or some Patriots, or probably not gonna get it, guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's just what it is. Like, unless something changes, unless I start caring about those teams more than I do, like I said, like I can feel, it's like, it's, some people think everything through, some people feel. I do a combination, right? But I'm mostly feeling. So it's like, but it's like, ooh, creepy, right? Like that intuition, right? You know what I mean? Or like some sort of foreshadowing in real life, right? Like, that's to me how I feel when I watch football. Like, whoa, that team's going to do something in a year or two, right? And I think a lot of people get those feelings, but they don't exactly understand it or know, like, they don't trust it. They don't. That's what I think a lot of it is. I think a lot of people feel it, but they don't really trust themselves, so they let other people do their thinking. So they turn on like ESPN, all that sort of stuff. They get told what to think, and they doubt what they really believe, or they just don't have any good intuition, like, at all, and they're just like brainless zombies and just repeat the talking points, all that sort of stuff. But I certainly believe there hopefully will be very intelligent people watching this who have had suspicions about a lot of different stuff. Maybe if you are just waking up, you're probably going to start having things pop up. Oh, that reminds me of my experience as a fan of completely different teams, and I know this that you don't know, and this that you don't know. And there's probably a lot of things I do know you'll be surprised I know about your team, right? But you'll certainly know more if you're truly dyed in the wool like that team. You know what I mean? You followed them your whole life. Like, yeah, you're going to have a different angle than me. You start applying some of my techniques. You start really studying the game in every way you possibly can, all the way from the very beginning. You don't treat no year different from the others. Don't think like, oh, stuff didn't matter back then or whatever. You respect every bit of it, and you'll man, if you're a Yankees fan, something like that, you're one of these teams that win a lot, you can figure out them. That'd go real good for you. right? So, you're the type of person that's like, oh, I always know when it's the Lakers or the Yankees or something like that. You start looking, so you might crack something crazy, right? Those teams got too many championships for me to spend my time on. I don't like the Yankees enough to figure out what 26 championships means. I don't want to, sincerely, right? But, you know, if you've somehow listened this far, I really appreciate y'all. Like I said, I like to speculate on a lot of stuff as far as like, how the things are done. That I don't know, but I do believe that I do know what is going on with, like the actual results, the outcome for this year. And I think it's not particularly close. I think the Lions kind of just let the Browns down easy by just crushing them. Sincerely, like 41-13. So yeah, really, I'm serious. Like, and the Browns are gonna be favored. I'm telling you that straight up. The Browns will be the favorite in the actual Super Bowl going into it, and the Lions will upset them. Even though that sounds insane right now, the Lions have already started to have a little bit of bad luck with the Hutchinson thing, right? When Goff goes down, it's gonna be just like when Wentz went down. Like they're gonna somehow act like they're doomed when they've got the ideal quarterback sitting right there. Well, so that's enough for the ramble. I went for an hour and a half for y'all. I gotta get up super early tomorrow. I always get up early, but tomorrow it's crazy, stupid early, and all sorts of appointments. And we got like the trade deadline, all sorts of stuff. So I've been run ragged. I was pumped to make this video. I'm sorry the energy didn't sound quite right, but just getting ran a little ragged. It's certainly nothing to do with like Browns losses taking their toll or anything. Like I feel better after each loss. Sincerely, it's like this is so like the worst thing would be if the Browns were like mediocre. Like they're noticeably, like shockingly, right? Like interestingly bad, right? Like they're the best story in football if they turn it around. So, unlike a team that's just got a quarterback that, team's just not caring or whatever. Like this team's fighting hard. 6 sacks in 1/2. Jeez. It'll turn around for them. I truly believe. And please just leave me your thoughts. Like, as you. Like, try not to be emotional about it. Tell me how you really feel. Approach me with respect. I'll do the same. I don't care what your opinions or beliefs are. I value them, but it doesn't matter what they are. Just as long as they're what you really believe. And, like I said, don't be a jerk. Right? Like, if you want to go say the Chiefs are going to three-peat, like, you got a billion places to do that. Why would you do that here? I don't think you're going to because nobody comments. Hardly anybody even watches anymore. You seen that fall off? 79,000 views to no and 17. 19 and 28. My best work right there. 19 views. 79,000 on Trevor Moore, which I am proud of. Don't get me wrong, not the views, but how good that video is. I've had some of those comments say it's one of the most important videos on the internet. Relatively speaking, like if we're not talking about one of the top 3 or 4 most important and we're saying like top 1%, yeah, I'll get that. I'll take that. I appreciate that compliment, and you're right. This Dolphins one is mind-blowing, and I need to redo it better, but there's enough there that you should be able to figure out. Whoops, sorry. Love y'all. Take it easy.